Hey everybody, welcome to a Christmas Eve / Christmas edition of NoDQ&A video right here on youtube.com/NoDQ&AW and of course NoDQ.com, your source for all the latest news regarding TNA Genesis as well as the Royal Rumble coming up. I will be there at the Royal Rumble in Phoenix. You can add me on Facebook, facebook.com/AaronRift, and I'll give you details about our post-Royal Rumble get-together. But we'll talk about more of that later. Right now, let's get right down to your questions. Your thoughts on the Daniel Bryan era, pretty much having come to an end. Went longer than I expected it would. I would not say that the Daniel Bryan era is even close to being over. Let's look at it this way. Daniel Bryan is never going to be a guy that WWE builds the company around. He's just not going to be that guy. But Daniel Bryan is a huge star in WWE. He's one of the most over guys on the roster, and he's a focal point of storylines every week. He's on Raw, he's on SmackDown a lot, he's the tag team champions along with Kane. He has a regular role, and he's a big deal to a lot of people. So there's always going to be a spot for Daniel Bryan on the WWE roster, and he's always going to be a big player for years to come, no doubt about it. So to say that his era is over, that's just a ridiculous thing to say. Yeah, he's not the world champion right now, and he probably won't be for a while, at least until later in the year, maybe. But I definitely see his career moving forward, and he will be a big deal for years to come. With rumors that Shelton Benjamin and MVP may return to WWE, do you think that there's a possibility of seeing them in the Royal Rumble match, even if it's a one-time thing? I definitely see it as a possibility. Regarding Shelton Benjamin, he was granted a release from Ring of Honor so he can negotiate with WWE. And I think that there's a decent shot we'll see him back at some point. And the Royal Rumble would be a great opportunity to reintroduce him and have him come back as a surprise. I would love to see that. As far as MVP goes, I mentioned this in a previous video. He's denying the rumors that he's in talks with WWE, and he says he hasn't had any contact with them. But then in another interview he did recently, he said that he would expect to see himself back in a WWE ring at some point, and he thinks there's a decent chance of that happening. I would love to see both of those guys back in WWE. And coming back at the Royal Rumble would be a great time for them to return. And you have to keep in mind that people deny their returns all the time. I mean, you look back a few years ago, like with Kevin Nash, he denied he was coming back, and then he shows up at the Royal Rumble. So same thing with Chris Jericho, he denied coming back. So these guys are going to deny it, even if it's true. If it's not true, they'll deny it, of course. But you just don't know until they show up. But of course, they're not going to come out, and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to be back at the Royal Rumble." They're not going to say that. But I think of the two, it's more likely that we'll see Shelton Benjamin back in the near future. This one comes from Dan 2007. If you could book any type of match with any two from any wrestling company, who would you pick? How would you book the feud, and where would the match take place at? Well, if I could choose two from any company, I think I would choose two from WWE. The match that I would really like to see and I would book, that match would be John Cena versus The Undertaker. That's the one match, the one big money match that WWE hasn't done. And I think that you would be crazy not to do that match. And of course, you'd have it at WrestleMania with The Undertaker streak on the line. I don't think there's a better match you can do, because The Undertaker is unbeaten at WrestleMania. He has this incredible streak. And then you have John Cena, the guy that everyone thinks is Superman and nobody can beat him. So it just makes logical sense to put those two against each other at WrestleMania. The problem is that Undertaker is his career is winding down, and he's only got a few years left. And I think you need to do it sooner than later. And I think the longer you put it off, the less likely that it'll happen. And with both guys, both guys are getting older, not just Undertaker, John Cena as well. So I really think that they need to do it soon. If not this year, then definitely WrestleMania 30, hopefully. because I think that would be a huge missed opportunity if that match doesn't happen. Hey Aaron, love the show. What are your thoughts when Raven crucified the Sandman back on October 26, 1996? Well, I was just a teenager at the time, and I didn't really know what to make of it. I didn't really understand the whole religious aspect of it and how it could offend people. Personally, it doesn't have any impact on me. I wasn't offended by it. I do think that it was a bad idea, and I think they pushed the envelope too far. There are a lot of people that are going to be offended by it, and I just don't think it's smart to alienate your audience. I think that sometimes you don't want to mix religion into whatever you're doing, because there's going to be people that are going to get upset. So I mean, it was in bad taste, but I can also see where they're coming from too. I mean, wrestling fans aren't exactly going to be the most moral religious people. They're not going to be in that category. And WWE did a similar thing several years later, and they pretty much got away with it. I mean, Undertaker crucified Steve Austin, although they didn't say it was a crucifix. They said it was a symbol. It's the Undertaker symbol. But yeah, WWE did a very similar angle, and it did generate a little bit of controversy, but not nearly as much as ECW did. So I'm not sure why WWE was able to get away with it, but they did. Although probably in today's era, they wouldn't be able to get away with something like that. They would get way too much heat, and WWE never really shows that clip, and I'm sure there's a good reason, because they would get a lot of heat for it. This one comes from October's Alnace. October Salnace, or something like that. In your opinion, what is the biggest match in WWE history in terms of what it did for the business, drawing power, nostalgia, and how memorable it was? Please answer in video. I think that if you look at all those elements, I think that Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, that match did that huge crowd in the Pontiac Silverdome, and it drew this tremendous pay-per-view number, and they just made so much money, and it's something that people remember to this day. They always look back at WrestleMania 3, the body slam heard around the world. Another huge match, some of the other big WrestleManias like Hogan versus Rock, that was a huge drawing match and had all the nostalgia, and people still remember it, and still to this day the highest pay-per-view buy rate for WrestleMania, the one with Donald Trump and Vince McMahon, the hair on the line, that was a huge match. So those were the biggest matches, I think, when you look at all those elements that you mentioned. This one comes from WWE Big Fan. Hey Aaron, Aarin, okay. It's Aaron, by the way. I love the show. Thank you for that. Is this JBL considered to be a face or heel, and why? Well, usually the color commentator is a heel, or tends to be on the heel side, and right now, JBL's kind of in the middle, I think. Sometimes he supports the babyface, sometimes he supports the heel, so he's not really in any one direction. I think he's just kind of there as a tweener, and he'll get the baby face over when needed. He'll get the heel over when needed. He's just there to just provide the commentary and provide some entertainment to the show, and I think he's doing a tremendous job, by the way. All right, this last one for today comes from The Prodigal. Hey Aaron, why were most of Edge's world title reigns only 1 or 2 months long? Well, number one, I think that he was only seen as a transitional champion, and he wasn't going to be a guy that WWE was building the company around, and because of that, they put the title on him as a transition, go from one babyface champion to another, and it was also during a period in WWE when they were changing the titles around a lot. And that was just the nature of the product and the booking. They were changing the titles on pay-per-views to try to boost up the buy rates and draw in more interest, because historically when there's a title change on the pay-per-view, it also generates a higher rating for Raw the next night. So those are the reasons why they were changing the titles around a lot. And I'm glad they've gone in the other direction. I think CM Punk's title reign is really significant, and they've protected the title and made the title mean something. And when he loses the title, it's going to mean a lot because he held it for so long. So I definitely prefer the longer title reigns. And 6 months is a good length for a title reign, but changing it every month, it was definitely overkill and devaluing the title. So yeah, it's better what they're doing now, and some kind of happy medium. Change it like every 6 months or so. I think is the best way to go. All right, that'll wrap it up for this edition of No DQ&A Video. Thanks as always for watching. Keep spreading the word on Facebook and Twitter, and stay tuned to NoDQ.com for all the latest WWE and TNA news. Don't forget, you still have time to vote in the No DQ Year-End Awards. Voting ends on December 31st, and the results will be announced on January 1st. So keep voting. You still have time to vote for your favorites. And I'll see you next time for more No DQ&A Video.